Hi everyone, my name's Vanessa and I'm one of the vets that works for Cats Protection, and I'd like to welcome you all to our first live question and answer session on COVID-19 and cats and what it means for cats, and to offer you some reassurance in these kind of testing worrying times. I know it really is an anxious time for many cat owners, and I do hope that I can answer some of the questions that you all have. So please feel free to write your questions down and I'll be looking at those and answering as the best we can. We have had quite a number of questions obviously coming in to us here at Cats Protection, asking for more information about COVID-19, coronavirus and cats and what it means. And I think there's a few myths we want to dispel, but there's also some reassurance that we want to give, and actually to give you some informed information actually about what it all means. So one of the first questions that I just wanted to touch upon really, and it's a common question, is that we're being asked whether cats can catch coronavirus. And it's a little bit to dispel the myths, because in terms of, we know that cats can catch a coronavirus called feline coronavirus, and that is a contagious virus that we find out and about in the environment, and a large proportion of cats, particularly those living in multi-cat households, will become infected and they pass it out in their faeces. Now, it mustn't be confused with coronavirus, the new coronavirus, and COVID-19, which is the disease that the new coronavirus causes, that we are seeing at the moment in people. The coronaviruses themselves are what we call species specific, and they generally only infect and become infectious in one species of animals, and they don't generally jump between species and infect other species. With feline coronavirus, it is the virus in cats that's responsible for causing feline infectious peritonitis, which people may well have heard of. But it's really, really important to note that the current coronavirus pandemic that we're seeing is not associated with feline coronavirus. And there is some current evidence, as I've said, that most of the strains don't cause symptoms in other species, and it is only just in one species. Okay, so I think moving on from that, obviously in the media people may have seen, particularly today, there's been more media hype talking about cats and coronavirus, and there has been a case in Belgium of a cat apparently testing positive for COVID-19. And I think yesterday some news broke that there was a cat in Hong Kong that has tested positive. The cat in Belgium had apparently shown some signs of vomiting and diarrhea and some respiratory signs. And the cat in Hong Kong is actually symptomless and has showed no signs. And in terms of both of these cats, they've come from households with somebody who has tested positive for COVID-19. What we do know is that samples have been taken from these cats, and there's been samples taken from vomit and diarrhea from the one cat, and certainly some swabs taken out of the mouth and the nose and the rectum of the other cat, and they've shown that there's what we call some genetic material of the virus in it. It's not actually showing at this stage that the cat is infected with the virus necessarily, or that it is infectious to anyone itself, other cats or people. And what we do know, the cat that was in Belgium actually has recovered and is a healthy cat now. And what we don't know is actually, was the vomiting and diarrhea and the respiratory signs related to the COVID-19 virus itself. What we do know is these are the first cases of human to cat transmission that we're aware of. If that cat, they've found some, found some virus, but what we don't know is whether this is live virus, and what we also don't know is actually whether the cat is mounting an immune response. We haven't seen results from blood tests yet, so we don't know if the cats have got any antibodies or anything. So actually the information we're getting is limited, and I think at this stage it's to say please don't worry about it, don't feel panicked by it. This is 2 cats out of however many tens of thousands of people that have been infected, and actually there's no evidence to suggest that it can transfer from cats to people or between cat to cat at this moment in time. So what we are saying is it's really important to think about good hand hygiene. That's the most important thing we can do. And if you suspect that you have COVID-19 or you've been diagnosed with it, then actually you limit your contact with your cats, but you're very extra cautious in washing your hands before and after if you do have to handle them, because that's the most important thing. What we do know at the moment, or at least that there is limited knowledge of, but we suspect, is that the cat can act as what we call a fomite. So the virus itself can survive on surfaces, particularly non-porous surfaces. If we think about metals, we believe there's some research that's shown the virus can last for up to 72 hours and survive on that. So there is some speculation that the virus can survive on cat's fur or dog's fur, particularly if you've got a person who's positive. Say, for example, they cough into their hands and then they wipe their hand onto their cat's fur. There is a possibility that the virus can survive. What we don't know is how long the virus can survive on the fur. So I think we've just got to remember to be extra specially cautious and remember that good hand hygiene, washing our hands as we're advised to do for the specified length of time with soap and hot water. One thing that I know has been talked about as well, people have said about wiping down your cat to try and, like we would wipe down our surfaces, which is also very important to try and remove the virus from in your homes. You might be using disinfectants, but actually with the cats, we would recommend that you don't use antibacterial wipes on their fur. Particularly, we don't know what chemicals are in all of the antibacterial wipes, and as you'll be well aware, cats are grooming themselves very regularly, and actually they may ingest these chemicals and they may be toxic. So if we do choose to wipe down our cats at all, if we are worried that there's a risk that there's virus on their fur, then we'd say just to do it with a damp cloth and not to actually do it with an antibacterial wipe. Similarly, if you are cleaning your house regularly and disinfecting surfaces, we would recommend that you don't use what we call phenol-based disinfectants, particularly Dettol, because the phenol component in the disinfectant is actually toxic to cats. So just being very cautious what chemicals you are using around cats. Obviously, if they're walking on it and then licking their paws, then they can ingest it and it can be toxic to them. Okay, so another question that's been coming up a lot as well is, do we need to be keeping our cats indoors during this outbreak? And I think it's being very sensible, okay, in this situation. If we've got a cat and it's a cat that's used to going out regularly and it roams a lot and it would find being kept indoors difficult and frustrating and stressful, then we would suggest that actually if you can keep it in a little bit more than normal, that would be great. But actually it may be better for the welfare of the cat to let it out. And actually it's probably more important that we think about how we interact with cats that aren't our own cats. And if there are cats outdoors and you, for example, if you normally let a stray cat into your house, stop doing that. The cat, as I've talked about, could carry the virus on its fur. So if it is bringing it into your house or when you're out and about, for example, I did 2 days ago out on the walk with the children round where we live, and there was a lovely tabby cat that came running up to me and I instinctively wanted to stroke it. But then thought, oh my goodness, no, it's probably not the best thing to do. I don't have access to quickly washing my hands at that time. So actually avoiding stroking that cat was the best thing I could have done for me. But if you do interact with them, again, remembering good hand hygiene and washing your hands with hot water and soap for the time that we should be washing them for, as the government are advising. And certainly, I think it's remembering that, yes, if you can keep your cat in, particularly if you've been diagnosed with COVID-19, it would be much more sensible if you can, but we've got to base it on the cat because it may not be in the cat's best interest. So yes, minimising the time it goes out. If you're in the vulnerable category, again, being very cautious if you're letting your cat out because you don't know where your cat goes during the day. It may be going around to a neighbour's down the road. Who knows, they could be suspected of having COVID-19 and therefore there's a risk that your cat could come back potentially with the virus on its fur. So again, we would recommend good hand hygiene, washing your hands before and after interacting with your cat and avoiding other cats that aren't your own where you don't know where they've been. And we all know that there's massive benefits to having cats, and actually they are a good comfort, and it's difficult to not want to interact with them. But I think the other thing to remember is actually if we trying to avoid them coming up to you and licking you or kissing you, particularly on your face. And if this does happen, if you wash the area straight away afterwards, again with soap and water, that's probably the best thing to do to minimise any kind of risk. Also, I suppose just to mention at this point, in terms of whether we should be keeping our cats indoors, there is a group of cats that maybe we should consider definitely keeping them in, and those are the cats which aren't neutered at the moment. So particularly for people that have got kittens that were due to get them neutered, I'll go on to talk a little bit about the vet situation in a moment, but actually for those cats we won't be able to get them neutered at this time, and so very important to try and keep them indoors. Cats reach puberty at 4 months of age, so our queens or our female cats can actually become pregnant from 4 to 5 months of age, so really important not to let them out. The other thing to bear in mind is that brother and sister can mate, so if you've got a boy and a girl and they're kittens and they're fastly approaching that 4 to 5 month age, you should be trying to keep them in separate rooms at home. And obviously at the moment where we're all stuck in the house together, it may be really tricky to do that, and totally appreciate it. But it's trying to do the best that you can to separate those cats, just to avoid those unwanted pregnancies. Okay. So moving on, I think, and I know I've touched on this already. One of the questions that, as well, that we're receiving is for individuals that are in that vulnerable category that's been set out by the government, so the people that are over 70, pregnant or have an underlying health condition, do they need to take any special precautions around their cat? And I think I'm probably going to bore you all by the end of this session by saying the same thing over and over again. It really is about the good hand hygiene, and making sure that you wash your hands before and after interacting with your cat. And again, minimising how much they go out if possible, particularly unsupervised if you don't know where your cat's going during the day and who they're interacting with and coming into contact with, just for the risk of that virus on their fur. And the other thing is to remember, sorry, I've lost what I was going to say then, in terms of making sure, again, say, don't let the cat kiss you or lick you, okay, if you can, and if that happens, then to actually make sure you wash the area. But yeah, minimising how much your cat goes out would hopefully reduce the risk a little bit, if there is a risk. I know I spoke earlier about your kittens that need to be neutering, that we're not going to be able to get them to the vets to neuter them. One of the questions certainly is around this, and if your cat was due to go to the vet to be neutered, can you still take them? And unfortunately at the moment we can't. Because of the government's advice and restrictions on movement and social distancing, vets are now only able to do emergency treatments. Okay, so any non-urgent treatment for the time being has to be delayed. And that's certainly for this 3-week lockdown period that we're in at the moment. We will be guided by what happens after this 3-week period by the government in terms of if we can start seeing more animals or not, but certainly for the time being your vet is only allowed to see emergency treatments. So with surgeries like neutering, it's non-urgent, your cat's surgery will have to be delayed. Now we would certainly say that it's really, really important to phone your vets if you are concerned for your cat at all and you've got a problem and you think the cat needs to be seen. So phoning the practice to start with before you even make your way down to the practice, and they will advise you on what to do. Certainly in some instances, particularly, for example, if you're a person suffering from COVID-19 or suspected of, it may be difficult to get the cat to the practice if you're asked to take the cat down. And in these instances, you may find that the practice will actually want to come and collect the cat themselves from your home, but will put things in place so that you minimise contact between you and the person from the practice. But in terms of if they do want to see the cat at the practice, if it is an emergency, again, it is very likely that they'll ask you to stay in the car for social distancing purposes, and they will collect the cat and take it into the practice. But I can't really reiterate enough that it's so important that you phone your practice first, and they will advise you of what procedures and processes they've got in place at the moment in terms of examining your cat if they feel they need to. Most practices are also now offering telemedicine. So for cats that have non-urgent problems, they may want to just do a consult either through a video call or over the telephone. And for cats that have got ongoing medical conditions, they should still be able to dispense medication for you, either through, again, a video call if they need to see the cat to redispense drugs. But generally they will either then arrange for you to be able to collect those medicines or they will post them out. But yeah, very important. So cats, vets can only see emergency treatments at the moment, and all non-urgent treatments are being delayed, which includes neutering and vaccinations. Okay. Right, let's see what other questions there are. Certainly something that we have within Cats Protection, that we have some great volunteers who tend to feed strays, or community cats or feral cat colonies. And a question is it still okay to feed these cats? I think we have to be incredibly cautious if we're doing it. But as we're not allowed to do non-essential travel at the moment, we would suggest that the only way that you can do it is if you combine it with a daily walk or exercise, which unfortunately means if you would normally have to travel to feed these cats, then actually you're not going to be able to do that. But if you can take some food and they're local and you can walk to where you would feed them, then that's fine to carry on doing. And similarly, if you have a stray cat that comes into your garden, yes, feed them in your garden. If that's what you normally do that. Obviously, I'm not advocating going out and feeding lots of cats that you don't normally feed. But certainly, if they're coming into your garden, normally you can do so. But again, remembering really good hand hygiene and washing your hands before and after you're doing anything, even just with the food, particularly if you're touching bowls or any other implements that the cat may have touched. Really important just to remember good hand hygiene. Okay, so I want to move on now really to talk a little bit more about the cats themselves. We talked a lot about for us as people and how we can protect ourselves and minimise any risk that there may be, but actually let's think about the cats. At the moment we're all in our houses, unfortunately isolated to them, and for some cats there's going to be a lot of commotion going on that they're not used to. So if we think about the children are usually at school, we're usually out to work, there's so many of us now working at home. I'm at home full time, my two children are here, and my husband, and it's a very busy house every day of the week compared to what it would normally be. So, our cats are likely to be unsettled by this, and we must remember it. Some cats might love it, all this social interaction with people, there's so much more going on, and it might be what they've been wanting for that kind of one-on-one attention all the time. But other cats will find this quite stressful. So what can we do to help our cats at the moment? And there's some really basic things that we should, to be honest, always have in place for our cats every day, not just in times like this, but it's probably much more important at the moment that we do have these in place. And so I'm going to just kind of run through a little list of what we should make sure we should have. And the first one is a nice safe place for your cat to go to. Okay, so in a busy household, my cat is currently sat on the bed in this room, the children are out of the room. She's not daft, she knows where to go, she wants somewhere that's nice and quiet away from them, and it makes her feel safe and secure to be in that place. So I certainly provide somewhere safe, and somewhere so they can feel secure. And also, if you can, provide them somewhere to get up high. So cats like to be able to get up high. It gives them a vantage point. It gives them somewhere to watch what's going on whilst they're out of the way of everything. And so they know when it's safe to come down again. But in terms of a safe place, somewhere like under a bed, a cardboard box is really good for them to hide into. A spare room where they can go to away from everyone if they want to. So just providing them somewhere where they can sneak off to and feel a bit safer. Really important to think about our resources that we're providing for our cats, particularly if we're minimising how much they're going out. We need to make sure that they've got food and water, so fresh water daily, and our food and our water bowls separate in different locations away from each other. Similarly, scratching posts, we need a nice good solid scratching area for your cat. If they're used to going out and scratching, they definitely need somewhere indoors to be able to do that. Litter trays, really important. If you've got more than one cat, they need a litter tray each plus an extra one. So particularly if you've chosen to keep your cat in during this period, make sure we've got appropriate litter trays and appropriate litter types that they like to use. And also play, but we'll talk about play in a moment. Really important to keep your cats active, to keep their mental and physical well-being where we want it, and particularly if they're not going out. So they may be getting a little bit bored and a little bit frustrated, not being able to do their normal predatory play behaviour outside, particularly if they're a cat that goes out a lot and is a big hunter. Then really important that we keep up the play activities inside. Another thing that cats relish and need, they need to be in control, and they need a predictable routine. So really important if you can try and keep to a normal routine. So although everything's a bit different, we're all at home, try and remember to feed them at the same time each day. Maybe have how you go off to work or your own routines with your children, keep them relatively similar each day, so the cat knows when things are going to happen and knows when it's a safe time to come out if it's feeling a bit anxious by it all. The other thing is regards to how much we interact with our cats. So some cats want more interaction than others. So particularly if you've got children around, if you've got a cat that actually doesn't like a lot of social interaction with people, reminding your children and teaching them about the way the cat wants to be handled and how much the cat needs to be handled, and kind of looking out for the body language of the cat. And we've got some excellent resources on our website which shows more about body language, shows more about how to interact with your cat, where it likes to be touched, where it doesn't like to be touched. So it's really useful to check those out. So our website is catsdogall.uk, and I'll mention that again later. But if you go on there, you'll find some really good information about how to interact with your cat. So in terms of play, as I said, we need to be providing lots of activity for the cat, whilst particularly if it's kept in. And actually it's a good opportunity to bond a little bit more with your cat if you don't generally have time to be playing with your cat all the time. Now's the time that you can really start doing it. And we would recommend using fishing rod toys, particularly with feathers on the end. It allows the cats to do more of its normal natural behaviour as they try and catch the feathers. And particularly these are good because it means we're not interacting directly with the cat, so there's no risk of us getting cat saliva on our hands. We can play at a distance and they're much better. But also toys that they can play with on their own, such as kicker toys and catnip toys, but being cautious if they've had them in their mouths, that actually we make sure we wash our hands again with soap and hot water after touching them if we need to touch them. Important with toys to change them daily. Cats can get bored of the same toys and they need novelty, so if you have a selection and you can bring a different one out each day, that'll certainly maintain your cat's interest in those toys. And I think a final thing to mention here is probably around about disinfectants I talked about before. If you are wiping down your house with disinfectants, just make sure you avoid the strong smelling ones, because cats are, for them, smell and scent is incredibly important for them. And just to make them feel a bit more comfortable, avoid the strong smelling ones. Okay. So again, if we're thinking about the cats and we think about actually they're going to be spending more time indoors, particularly if you, for example, are suspected to have having COVID-19 and you can limit their access outdoors, we may want to be giving them more things to do to try and keep them active, and it's good for their mental and physical well-being. And I know I've just talked about play, so play with fishing rod toys really important, but there's a few other things that we can do. Puzzle feeders are excellent for boredom busting the cats, or boredom busters for the cats, and they're something that we can either buy, or actually we can get involved and make puzzle feeders for the cats ourselves. We could get our children involved to do it, and again, if you go onto our website, there's some great information on what you can make, and we know we've got some YouTube videos on making toys, but things like toilet roll pyramid puzzle feeders are really good, and I know everyone's got lots of toilet rolls around at the moment, so really important we could make some fun things with our children, but also for the cats to actually be activated, and they're having to feed and find and get either biscuits or treats from these puzzle feeders. So just gives them something to do and stimulates them a little bit more than actually having nothing to do in this household with lots going on. I said provide somewhere nice for the cat that's for them to hide. Again, we can be making something for the cat to hide in, whether we use cardboard boxes, and we can get children involved with those. Or if you go onto our website, again, there's a great way of making a cat bed with a box, and you put a t-shirt or jumper over it, and it creates a really nice hidey hole for the cats to go into. One, I suppose, last thing just to mention again as well is to use synthetic pheromones. They're really good to help some cats just feel a little bit less stressed and a little bit happier in the house, particularly if there's a lot going on or they are wanting to go out and they can't go out. And one final mention is it's also maybe a good time that you can, when you're interacting with your cat a little more, you can actually set up some training and train your cat to do a few things. It's stimulating for them, and it might help to kind of grow the social bond between you and the cat. So again, going onto our website, you'll find more information about this. Okay. I suppose I just wanted to mention something at this point to say that cats are great for relieving people's stress, and they can bring happiness and comfort and company. So I think at these times where we're all probably feeling very anxious about what's going on around us, we shouldn't be feeling too anxious about the role that cats might play in passing on COVID-19. There certainly isn't any evidence to suggest that they can pass it back from cats to people at the moment at all. So I think remembering the good bits about what cats can do, and actually let's let them help us with our own mental well-being and be there for us. And I think one of the requests that we've had I've had is we'd love to see your photos and hear your stories on our social media, so on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram channels. And so if you can send them in to us, they'll be really good, feel-good pictures for everybody, and hopefully they'll lift us all up a little bit and make this a more positive time that it can be at the moment. So yeah, if you can send us in our photos and stories, we'd really, really appreciate it. Okay, so I think moving on now, if we just touch upon actually where we are at Cats Protection at the moment in everything that's happening. And I know people are asking us questions about whether they can actually get a cat from us at this time, and particularly because, as I say, the benefits that cats bring to our own mental well-being. Some people would really like a cat for company during the outbreak, particularly if you're living on your own. Then actually you may feel that a cat would be really, really helpful. Unfortunately, at the moment, we are not rehoming any cats, and we've actually paused taking cats in as well, apart from we've got a couple of schemes running, which is our Cat Guardian scheme and our Paws Protect scheme. But other than that, we are not admitting or homing any cats. And that's in light of the current restrictions that the government has put in place to protect human health. Okay, so non-essential travel and social distancing, we're unable to home cats. We are currently looking into the options of what we can do in the current times, but we will be guided by the government when it's safe to do so. So really, really important just to note that we're not admitting cats or homing cats at the moment, but kind of keep an eye on it on our website. So that's cats.org.uk, and as soon as anything changes, then we will let you know. But yeah, at the moment, we're not homing cats. Okay. And so, as I've mentioned, our website has lots of information on it, but if you want to look for more information about cats and COVID-19, we have got some question and answers actually on the website. So if you go to our website, it's cats.org.uk, and you'll find up-to-date information. We are reviewing that daily at the moment, so it will change as any kind of developments happen, particularly around cats and COVID-19. So yeah, check it out, and I'd also recommend that you go to the government website, and there'll certainly be some recent updates from DEFRA on there about people and their companion animals, so cats is included in that. So yeah, go and check those out. So how can you help us at this time? So there are a number of ways that you can help us, and as a charity we would really, really, really still want your help, and particularly during these difficult times. If you look up your local Cats Protection branch or centre to see if they've got an Amazon wish list, that's really, really good, and you can buy products from it, and they will then go to the cats that we currently have in our care. We have just under 4,000 cats at the moment in charity care across Cats Protection, and so those cats at the moment are going to be stuck in care for an indefinite period of time until the government lifts any restrictions and we can start homing again. So being able to provide those cats with new resources, new toys to play with, off these wish lists, new scratch mats, etc. would be really, really useful. So yeah, go to your local Cats Protection branch or centre and have a look at their Amazon wish list. You could also set up your own Facebook fundraiser, and we'll be able to leave you some details about those, certainly in the comments in a moment, after the session's finished. And if you're having a clear out during this time because you're at home and you've decided to tidy everything up, have a look and bag up clothes, items and anything that you could drop off to our shops. At the moment our shops are closed, but certainly when they reopen we'll still be in need of items, so any second-hand items will be gratefully received. And you can also set up a charity kitty in your house maybe, so any money that you'd have normally spent going out or on your petrol money, then maybe consider putting that towards a good cause. And I think obviously the human charities certainly do need their money at the time, but we also need to consider our cats, and if there is an opportunity for you to be able to send and donate, save and donate some, then we would be extremely grateful. So yeah, if you could consider doing that. Okay, so let me have a look. So they were all the questions that I wanted to cover beforehand, but let me look and see what questions are coming in and if there's anything that I can answer. So just bear with me whilst I look through the questions that are coming up on my screen. Oh yeah, somebody's asked about cats chewing cables, and it is difficult. Cats do tend to like cables. I remember getting through with my cats when they were younger 2 laptop chargers in a matter of a month. It is difficult, and I would say it's trying to restrict their access to the cables. And certainly something I should have maybe mentioned earlier on was cats love to get up on your desk particularly if you're working from home and they're not used to you being here, and they love it and they're trying to get your attention all the time. With it, it's great if you can provide somewhere for your cat in your office, or if you've got a separate place you can go into work. Either somewhere where your cat can't get into is good, or if that's not the case and they're going to be there, provide them a nice soft bed or a nice area that they can go and snuggle on and sleep on where they want to be, rather than coming and actually distracting you all the time. And really try to prevent that attention-seeking behaviour. So they might jump up and you think that they're actually wanting to be fed or wanting to be fussed. If it's becoming a problem, don't let it start, or I should say don't let it start becoming a problem, and try just to avoid interacting with your cat, and don't respond by going and feeding them. So important to just try and stop that attention-seeking behaviour on the off. But also caution, I suppose, if you're working on documents and different things, that actually you make sure you save them regularly, because if your cat jumps on your keyboard, there is a risk that you'll lose it. So yeah, just thinking about ways of working around having your cats at home with you whilst you're trying to work from home. Okay. Okay, someone's saying that they recently got scratched by their cat and they're worried because their cat does go out. I think in terms of risk, the risk is incredibly low, and certainly if there is a risk, it's probably more from the cat carrying the virus on its fur, but we don't believe that it will survive on the fur for very long. And so certainly if you do get scratched, it's again being really cautious and washing your area where you get scratched, and if you're concerned, to contact your GP. But I think it's a very, very, very low risk that being scratched, that you're likely to get any infection from the coronavirus at this stage. Okay, someone's asked about vaccinations, and I did touch very briefly about vaccinations. So someone's asking that their booster vax for their cat is due in August, and what happens if this lockdown goes on. I think at the moment, boosters, if your cat has been regularly vaccinated, boost your booster vaccine. Hopefully your cat will have some residual immunity already to what we vaccinate against. And there is a period of time that we can delay that vaccine for, and we won't need to restart the course, and that's an off-label length of time. What I would say is we will be guided, I suppose, by our own governing bodies within the vet profession, whether we can or not be able to start back up based on government advice. But I think if it's due in August at the moment, you will have hopefully until September, October, November, at least November time, before we would even need to worry about restarting that vaccination. So I think don't worry about it at the moment. Let's see where we are in August, and you have a few months that you can delay it anyway before you have to do the booster vaccination. Okay. Yeah, and certainly somebody's asked about separating their cats because they've got a brother and sister. I'm presuming that's because they're not neutered, and they were concerned about the level of anxiety the cats will feel being separated. If they are a bonded pair of cats, then and they're showing behaviours that suggest that they are a bonded pair, then then there may be a level of anxiety by separating them. It's being very cautious and monitoring what those cats are doing, and if there are any signs that the female cat is coming into heat, which she may vocalise more, her body position may change. We've got more information on that, which you can look up on our website, and it would be at those times definitely separating them. So cats come into season every 3 weeks, so it would be making sure that you do separate at that time when she's likely to be more fertile and ready to mate. So yeah, it's being very cautious and monitoring, and if anything does happen, obviously trying to keep those cats apart at that time. The risks, I suppose, the other thing to mention is with pregnancy, there is a risk of complications with every pregnancy, and what we don't want in this time as well is to risk having a pregnancy and then having problems, which then turns into an emergency and you have to take your cats to the vet. So we want to be limiting as well those types of emergencies that may happen. So yeah, where you can try to separate them, it will be best for all their welfare in the long run. Sorry, I'm just looking through all the questions here. I'm just trying to see which are the ones that we've not covered already that we can cover now. Bear with me. So somebody has said that their cat's lost weight. He's lost a kilo by the looks of it in a few weeks, but is still eating normally. Is this considered an emergency? So obviously your cat has lost quite a lot of weight, a kilo, so a seventh of its body weight in a few weeks. So definitely be concerned that there's something going on, and you need to seek advice from your vet. What I would recommend is that you phone your vet practice and talk to them. They will hopefully be able to do, if they will advise whether they feel they need to see the cat, and that is likely to be after they've spoken to you on the phone about it, or whether they do a video call to talk about it, and they can advise you whether or not they want to see the cat. They may be able to give medication if they feel that's necessary without seeing the cat, but you must be very much guided by the practice. That we have a list that has been sent out to practices that informs them of what is considered an emergency procedure, or when an animal needs to be seen in an emergency, so they would know when they felt they needed to see you. But certainly telemedicine is playing a big part at the moment in being able to treat animals that don't need to be seen. So yeah, phone your practice, they'll offer you the advice and they'll say what they feel is best to do. Again, somebody's asking about a diabetic cat and a blood test. I would speak to the practice who normally treats your cat. I know nothing about how, if your cat's been stable or not, or how your cat is at the moment. So speak to the practice. They'll have the cat's history from when they've examined her before, and they can advise. So certainly, yeah, best to speak to the vets. Okay. Let's see if we can find a couple more questions whilst we've got time. We have got lots of questions coming in. Okay, somebody's asking about a 10-month kitten with diarrhea and noisy breathing and whether they can catch coronavirus. Obviously, I've talked quite a lot about this earlier on in this session, and whether they can get ill or develop antibodies. The truth is, about whether they develop antibodies, we don't know at the moment. There is no evidence to suggest that a cat has become infected and has produced antibodies, and that's the case. We were waiting off some blood results to come from the 2 cats that they found virus in them, but we don't actually know whether it's live virus, and we don't know whether the cats have mouse immune response, so we don't actually know. So that's kind of a watch this space. With your kitten with diarrhea, it's much more likely that the diarrhea is caused by something what we commonly see, and again, it's a matter of talking to your vets about what you should be doing to treat the kitten, but it's much more likely that it's a normal kitten diarrhea caused by a multitude of other reasons rather than it is from the new coronavirus. Yeah, somebody has asked about picking up a new kitten during lockdown. Breeders have actually been advised not to rehome puppies and kittens at this time because of the lockdown. And that's due to the government restrictions on social distances and unessential travel. So it isn't appropriate for them to be rehoming puppies or kittens at the moment. So I'd recommend, unfortunately, that you're going to have to wait until that we know more and whether lockdown's going to carry on or what happens at the end of the 3-week period, and be guided by what restrictions the government have set us. Okay, let's just see if we've got one more question before we wrap everything up. Somebody's asking about their cats due their second injections for their vaccines and they're not able to get them done, on whether it's still okay to let them out. I think the sensible advice I would give you is to keep them in, if you can keep them in, particularly if they've only had 1 vaccination. Just for their own protection, it would be better to keep them in. And again, I'm not sure whether your cats have been neutered or not, but also if they haven't been neutered yet, then actually we should be keeping them in to try and avoid these unwanted pregnancies. Okay, I think that looks like we've covered most of the questions. I'll just scroll down to the bottom just to make sure. Okay, I think we've covered most things, but if there's any that I've missed, we will be answering them under the comments here, so please keep an eye out. We will try and answer those. Again, as I said earlier, if you've got any more questions or you want more advice, if you go onto our website at catsdog.org.uk, there is a FAQ document on there that should answer a lot of your questions on the current COVID-19 crisis and cats. So if you can, go and have a look there. There's also some great information on things that you can do with your cat, and certainly helping them at this time, particularly if they're being kept indoors more. But yeah, go and check it out. Thank you for listening, and I hope you found this useful. It's been great talking to you, and thank you, and hope to see you all again soon. Thanks.